It's so interesting. I don't know about those of you who teach and lecture. Like, you know, knowing it's time to present something and trying to find the thread that you can connect with. So I spent like a couple of hours reading through all these different things, and the words, they were just dead. Every page was dead. It was like I couldn't find that connection, you know. And my dining room table is full of, oh, what about this, my notes on this talk, and what about that talk? And so then at around 5 minutes to 7, or around 7, Ron came to my mind, Ron Fishman, and then I kind of got the thread. He was in Florida in jail for 10 years and had written to Insight Meditation Society when I was the guiding teacher there, and he was looking for a pen pal. And no one on staff, it being a non-profit, everyone was totally overworked. And so when the invitation at the staff meeting was, who wants to write to Ron? No one did. So I said I would. And we started a letter relationship. And he got out, and he couldn't find any work. And then a friend said, oh, look, I've got a great deal for you. It's really safe. And it had to do with selling marijuana, and it was a setup. And so he got arrested again. It was his 3rd time, and so he was in for 25 years. And he was suicidal. He was so, like, just, I cannot do this again for this long. And so there were times in my own practice that were very difficult, and it felt like I could not take another breath or another step. And because I felt so connected to Ron, I would take another breath for Ron, and I would take another step for Ron. And I would just say to myself, I know I can't do this for myself, but I can do it for Ron. And so I wanted to talk about the path of the Bodhisattva, not as like very formally, but in the blessing of dedicating our practice. Like, not just that we do our practice and then we dedicate it, but that our practice comes into being because we're dedicating it to the well-being of others. And it can be just one person who is moving us particularly, or all the different places and situations that we all might have in our own homes or coming together to dedicate our practice, like when the killing of our community in Orlando, for example, the ways that we came together and we dedicated our practice to all those beings and families. And of course, that's one small example of or the many, many times that we dedicate our practice. And it feels like such a beautiful generosity in the ways that we do that. Here is like some very formal vows. However immeasurable sentient beings are, I vow to save them. However inexhaustible the obstructions, I vow to extinguish them. However immeasurable the dharmas are, I vow to live them. However incomparable enlightenment is, I vow to attain it. And I love this. I love this invitation, because it also frames my practice in a really different way when I connect with this vow. And I know that it's something that I've done over the years and years. I come back to this vow over and over again. And then, we'll get caught up in the busyness of life and like coming here and sitting and going and bowing or before and after the sitting helps me connect with, something bigger about my practice than just my practice, my breath. But then there's also this framing of when it's not just about me, then I don't have to get so attached to my experience and my practice. That it's not like, it's so big, that vow, right? And it's so timeless. It's like it reframes my practice as, just whatever I can do. Because it brings it to just the step instead of, I should have had a better meditation. It's like, this is about something so much bigger. So I love that part of it, that sort of de-selfing the practice, because it's this deep commitment. And I feel like that too about some of the political movements I've been in, but maybe come to that in a moment. So here's another dedication. I'll put in we for this one. It's a Vietnamese one. May we be a guard for those who are protectorless, a guide for those who journey on the road, for those who wish to go across the water. May we be a boat, a raft, a bridge. May we be an island for those who yearn for landfall, and a lamp for those who long for light, for those who need a resting place, a bed. For all who need support, may we be a friend. May we be the wishing jewel, the vase of plenty, a word of power and the supreme remedy. May we be the trees of miracles, and for every being, the abundant cow. That's a very funny one. Like the great earth and the other elements, enduring as the sky itself endures, for the boundless multitude of living beings, may we be the ground and vessel of their lives. Thus, for every single thing that lives, in number like the boundless reaches of the sky, may we be their sustenance and nourishment until they pass beyond the bounds of suffering. And then it ends with, countless sentient beings we vow to help cross the oceans of existence. Eternal sufferings we vow to end. Innumerable spiritual methods we vow to study and comprehend. the Buddha's unsurpassable supreme Dharma we vow to realize. So then there's an actual path that we're invited to realize this Bodhisattva vow, or however you might like to name your longing to support the freedom and liberation of all beings. Bodhisattva vow might not do it for you, and there might be some other name for it. Traditionally, the embodiment of this vow comes about through the practice of the paramis, and there are 10 in the Theravadan tradition. And they are Dana or generosity, Sila or virtue and ethical living. I'll just do the English. Renunciation, wisdom, energy or determination, patience, truthfulness, determination, loving kindness and equanimity. And I am going to talk about just a couple of these, and I want to begin with patience, because some of you who live with me in particular know that's not my greatest strength. So I thought I would continue to support my commitment to patience by talking about it. Patience has the characteristic of acceptance. Its function is to endure the desirable and undesirable. Its manifestation is tolerance, and the cause for its arising is seeing things as they are. And then this is from a book called The Treatise on the Paramis, which I've been working on patience for quite a while. When I went to the forest refuge about 20 years ago, I picked up this book and I was like, yes, I'm going to, at the forest refuge, you take a theme, you say you're going to, they have a little hut for you to just practice in by yourself that has a little kitchen. And in order to now I don't know what it's like, but to stay there, you have to tell them what you're going to study. So I copied this and sent it to them. It's called The Perfection of Patience. Patience is the unimpeded weapon of the good in the development of the noble qualities, for it dispels anger, the opposite of such qualities, without residue. It is the adornment of those capable of vanquishing the unwholesome, a stream of water extinguishing the fire of anger, the basis for acquiring a good reputation, a mantra for quelling poisonous speech, the supreme source of constancy in those established in restraint. I love that. The supreme source of constancy in those established in restraint. Patience is an ocean on account of its depth, a shore bounding the great ocean of hatred, a panel closing off the door to the plain of misery, a staircase ascending to the worlds of the gods and Brahmas, the ground for the habitation of all noble qualities, the supreme purification of body, speech, and mind. Yeah, it's considered the highest, actually, the highest of all paramis. So then I thought of Milarepa. I loved this story so much, and I don't know if you heard of Milarepa, but he came from a wealthy family, and his father died, and so his uncle took over what was considered the estate, and didn't share any of the money with his mother or him. And his mother got into black sorcery as revenge. They got in, and the mother taught him black sorcery, and they actually, through magic, made the ceiling fall down of a wedding of the uncle's family. Someone in the uncle's family was getting married. Anyway, Milarepa went to study black magic, and then on his way heard about Marpa, this great teacher. So he went to Marpa and he said, will you be my teacher? And Marpa said, yes, but you have to take down the stone tower. And I think it took Milarepa almost 3 years to dismantle each of the stones of this tower. And then by the time he did it, he was super excited. And he went to Marpa and said, I've done it. Okay, give me the teachings. And Marpa said, no, now you have to put it together again. I'm talking about this because I really relate to this story, because then he had to put it all up again. And then he was super excited, and Marpa said, now you have to take it all down again. 3 times, 10 years. And after the last time, Marpa said, now you're ready to receive the teachings. So when I have to work sometimes with my mind, and it feels like it's intransient to the nth degree, I think of Milarepa, just taking one stone after another for 10 years, and it gives me such solace. Some of you know that Ruth, after her enlightenment experience with the Ubekin, went on to study with a very famous Zen teacher. It was actually here in LA. And she was very, very focused. There was so much emphasis on effort and making right effort. She was so focused on just, the point, this point of your nostril, in and out breath and in and out breath, that somehow she breathed herself out of her body and ended up on the ceiling. This is her description. And she had no way to get back into her body. And so she knew she was going to die, that her consciousness was out of her body. And because she didn't turn up for the meal, and in that monastery, everyone, you have to turn up for the meal, someone came to knock on her door, and she managed with great difficulty to say, Master, because she was out of her body, so she couldn't really talk. And so the master came and she said, on ceiling, die. Like, I'm dying. And the master said, die. And that snapped her back into her body. But it was like severe dissociation. She could not connect with any experience. Like, remember I told you that my medicine experience, she was like that. She could not connect with anything, and she didn't have any mindfulness. So every day, several times a day, she would lie on her bed, and she loved dogs. And she had a little dog, a little black pooch, who she used to call her pooch. I don't know what dog it was, but it was little. And she put her dog here on her chest. And she would try to feel the movement of breath under that pressure for 2 years. She did that for 2 years. So beautiful. That just patient commitment, just orienting, just every day, just that opening to feel that thread, that connection, right? And she did. After 2 years, she brought herself back. She reintegrated herself. And both these stories have given me so much solace in the times when I have found myself either caught in the huge grip of something that has made it so difficult to stay connected to my heart and to mindfulness, or in my own dissociation when very intense memories come up from my childhood. I just take them as my light. You know, when the Buddha died, he said, "Be a lamp unto yourself." This is my lamp. These two stories of my lamp of patience, that it's that whether in a way, whether it integrates or not, that's the path. So those ways that we find our connection back into ourselves. So that feels so much like the practice of a Bodhisattva. And then, of course, when we think about supporting the ending of oppression, and what Bishop Tutu says of Mandela, I love this as well because it's such a teaching of patience as well. He says, and Mandela came to some meetings in my house when I was growing up, and he was already a man of some grace. But Bishop Tutu says there is no way Mandela could have actually led the country in the way he did in the transition of the Afrikaners to the ANC without those 27 years in prison, because the patience it took to hold through that vision of liberation, given all the leaders were in jail, dead, or out of the country pretty much. That just like honing that capacity of the ways that they got messages from the outside, you know, but slow, and then would find ways to give messages back to the outside to support the movement, and that just like 27 years. So you've heard that my parents were in jail, and then they went into hiding when they got out of jail, and then finally they made a deal with the police and they gave up their passports and citizenship rights to get out of the country. So we left the country, and I'll just jump through a lot to say we ended up after another year in London, and so they were still active in London and for a couple of years, and then they were like, we cannot see a way. We cannot see a way for ending apartheid. And so they stopped their work. They stopped their active work. And I remembered it because now I can say this, because they were part of an underground movement. My dad was like going back illegally, smuggling guns into the country. And so there would be these big crates, you know, that would be delivered to us. And so living a life of secrecy, because my friends would be like, wow, you know, We lived in an apartment block. What are you always getting these boxes? So anyway, and then I realized as a kid, oh, those crates stopped coming. And I could feel the change in my parents. It was subtle. Now I can name it. But just a little bit of the orientation more towards, and not to say this is bad, it isn't, but more towards comfort and going out more to restaurants, and just a subtle change in their orientation. And they certainly had gone through a lot before we got there, so I'm also needing rest, I'm sure. And there were many who sustained the vision. And they went back to Mandela, invited them back, and they went back and they did very good work too. So I'm just saying, I experienced what it means to let go, and the loss of that, and to pointing to what it means when we don't let go, which is even after 27 years, 10 years of Marpa, 2 years of Ruth, 27 years, that vision was realized, and realized because of the patience and the building of that patience as a supreme quality of bodhicitta. So I want to acknowledge then, as a trauma survivor, how sometimes trauma expresses itself as an incapacity to hold what is difficult. And so there's this sort of need to address something immediately because, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but there's an element of it, of feeling like my life is at stake, like this is a survival. If I don't address it immediately, this is survival. And I bow down to that. I intervene as much as I can, and I bow down to it. So I know for me, this very beautiful quality is also a great challenge, because it's interacting directly with some of the old trauma survival of I've got to do this now. So then I love that I work with it as much as I can, imperfectly, and that I know it's a long road ahead. Having said that, I also want to, also acknowledge the, well, maybe that's enough of that. All right. Okay, so that's the beautiful quality of patience. And then I wanted to, this is part of patience, but also loving kindness in a way. What it is to have enemies in our hearts. And by that I mean people that we might name as fascists, people who are perpetrating incredible harm. It could be people at work who aren't respectful to us. It could be like when I went to get my citizenship and I went into the Department of Immigration, the energy, it was like you could cut the unwholesomeness of that place. It was so intense. And, there was the whole thing with the police and the guards and guns and everything. And it was like, I can honestly say I did not consider any of those people my friend. And I've had such terrible experiences with the police that I can say that I grew up with a lot of hatred towards the police and the state, both in, particularly in South Africa and also in England. So I can say, though, in my practice, as someone who wants to support change, that I know that I can't do that unless I hold everyone with respect and kindness. And what that means, the amount of opening to my own suffering in order that I can care for that, so that the defense of anger and hatred dissolves, and I can hold and understand in new ways that I couldn't when I was younger, the different conditions that brought about those actions. That mean that actions are held accountable, but that the people aren't, that those people don't deserve to be hated. And making that distinction. And I understand that means that I hold both the building of the beautiful qualities to give me a refuge, and then my commitment to turn to the places that are offended to feel and open to my own suffering. Because unless I do, I can't be a Bodhisattva for liberation, for my own liberation and for all beings' liberation. And I know that I know this is ongoing along with my patients, and the people that I have the hardest time forgiving have been the people closest to me. And I'm so clear that my practice is dedicated to unburdening my heart of hatred and anger, and blame and judgment. So the first step for me has been in not justifying my anger through things that have been directed towards me or other people, like challenging that. And that I notice that sometimes my mind gets lazy, and I'm like, especially when I hear the news, like, yeah, how can you do that? Like, you suck. Or something worse. But I know that I don't want that living in my heart. So then, in honor of that, and in honor of one of my teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh, you've heard this before, but I want to read it because it feels like such a deep practice as part of being the Bodhisattva role. Even though okay, let's see here. When you first learn of something, like the pirates inflicting so much suffering on the refugees who are escaping in small boats, you get angry at the pirate. You naturally take the side of the people in the boats and even of the young girls. As you look more deeply, you will see it differently. You will take the side of the little girl. Then it is easy. You only have to take a gun and shoot the pirate. But we cannot do that. In my meditation, I saw that if I had been born in the village of the pirates and raised in the same conditions as they were, there is a great likelihood that I would have become a pirate too. I saw that many babies are born along the Gulf of Siam? Is that Thailand? Hundreds every day. And if we educators, social workers, politicians, and others do not do something about the situation, in 25 years, a number of them will become sea pirates. That is certain. If you or I were born today in those fishing villages, we may become sea pirates in 25 years. If you take a gun and shoot the pirate, all of us are to some extent responsible for these state of affairs. After a long meditation, I wrote this poem. In it, there are three people, the 12-year-old girl, the pirate, and me. Can we look at each other and recognize ourselves in each other? This poem is called Please Call Me by My True Names, because I have so many names. When I hear one of these names, I have to say yes. Do not say that I'll depart tomorrow, because even today I still arrive. Look deeply. I arrive in every second to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with wings still fragile, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, in order to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that are alive. I am the mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird which, when spring comes, arrives in time to eat the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear pond, and I am also the grass snake who, approaching in silence, feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all sticks and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks. And I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands. And I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people, dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom in all the walks of life. And my pain is like a river of tears, so full it fills the 4 oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and laughs at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true name so I can wake up, and so the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion. So, and then close to this is from Bishop Tutu's book. Oh, maybe. So this was in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and this is what Bishop Tutu says in a moment when the police are asking for forgiveness to some of the members in this town whose families had been murdered by the police. So it says, the next witnesses were former CDF officers, one white and the other black. The white officer, Colonel Hurst Schoberger, was their spokesman. He said that it was true they had given the orders for the soldiers to open fire. The tension became so thick you could, as they say, cut it with a knife. The audience could not have been more hostile. Then he turned towards the audience and made this extraordinary appeal. I say we are sorry. I say the burden of the Bisho massacre will be on our shoulders for the rest of our lives. We cannot wish away it happened. But please, I ask specifically the victims not to forget. But please, I ask specifically, I cannot ask this, but to forgive us, to get the soldiers back into the community, to accept them fully, to try and understand also the pressure they were under. This is all I can do. I'm sorry. This is all I can say. I'm sorry. That crowd, which had been so close to lynching them, did something quite unexpected. It broke out into thunderous applause. Unbelievable, the mood change was startling. The colonel's colleagues joined him in apologizing, and when the applause died down, I said, "Can we just keep a moment of silence, please? Because we are dealing with things that are very, very deep. It isn't easy, as we all know, to ask for forgiveness. And it's also not easy to forgive. But we are people who know that when someone cannot be forgiven, there is no future. If a husband and wife quarrel and if one doesn't say, I'm sorry, and the other says, I forgive, the relationship is in jeopardy. No one could have predicted that day's turn of events. It was as if someone had waved a special magic wand which transformed anger and tension into this display of communal forgiveness and acceptance. We could only be humbled by it and deeply thankful that so-called ordinary people could be so generous and gracious. So, patience, forgiveness, and committing to being on the path of not letting anyone live as an enemy in our hearts. So, the mantra that that is my personal mantra that I share over and over again to make this possible, is really trusting that when someone is my enemy, the way I'm thinking about them is not true, that it's a distorted perception, and that the only way to enter into this transformation is to drop all my thoughts, all my stories and opinions about this one person or group of people, communities of people, and to feel the feelings that these people have triggered inside of myself. And that as that process happens over and over and over again, then how I come out of that process feels closer to the writing and the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh, that I too could have been this person in different conditions. And actually, some of you know, when I was young, I was that person. I didn't pick up a gun, but I was very unskillful in many ways when I was younger. So we were talking about faith today, and I really wanted to lift up this one aspect of faith, that there is not ever any truth in any of our perceptions, thoughts, or opinions when there is hatred, anger, shame, blame, judgment associated with them. They are always distorted. And if we want to become aligned with the truth, it means really becoming warriors by cutting those stories and dropping into the body and feeling the feelings around them. And through that process, many times over, comes this capacity to care for what we're feeling. And in that caring, that oppositional me and them falls away. And we're held in, yes, you are part of the family. I still hold you and myself accountable for the things, for the harm, but I don't consider you an enemy. So I'm going to end with this this poem by Fred Lamotte. Some of you might know it. It's my ancestry DNA results came in. Just as I suspected, my great-great-grandfather was a monarch butterfly. Much of who I am is still wriggling under a stone. I am part larva, but part hummingbird too. There is a no, not larva. Is that larva? Yeah, larva. There is a dinosaur tar in my bone marrow. My golden hair sprang out of a meadow in Palestine. Genghis Khan is my fourth cousin, but I don't get his dimples. My loins are loaded with banyan seeds from Sri Lanka, but I descended from Ravana, not Ram. My uncle is a mastodon. There are traces of Viking people in my saliva. 3.7 billion years ago, I swirled in the golden dust, dreaming of a planet overgrown with lingams and yonis. More recently, say 60,000 BC, I walked on hairy paws across a land bridge, joining Sweden to Botswana. I am the bastard of the sun and moon. I can no longer hide my heritage of rainbows and cougar scat. I am made of your grandmother's tears. You conquered rival tribesmen of your own color, chained them together, marched them naked to the coast and sold them to colonials from Savannah. I was that brother you sold. I was the slave trader, I was the chain. Admit it. You have wings vast and golden like mine. Like mine, you have sweat, black and salty. Like mine. Like mine, you have secrets silently singing in your blood. Like mine. Like mine, don't pretend that earth is not one family. Don't pretend we never hung from the same branch. Don't pretend we don't ripen on each other's breath. Don't pretend we didn't come here to forgive. So let's hang just for a moment together. Thank you for your listening.